The 2010 wedge rule deemed this wedge illegal to play in professional competitions. What I didn't realise is that you guys can still play with it, I think. Underneath that beautiful set of Muras, which I'm giving away at 50,000 subscribers, please like and subscribe, we have an old school red saw spin milled Vokey wedge. Non-conforming because it was made before 2010. Non-conforming to professional and high level amateur golf, but not necessarily for you. Ignore that, that's for Instagram and TikTok. I kind of appeal to a different age of audience, I would like to think. Let's get into the video. Guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. It's Simon down here at Sandford Springs Golf Club. Non-conforming wedges. Now, I've done a lot of research into this topic because the last thing I want to do as a golf coach / golf YouTuber is give you the wrong kind of information and make myself look stupid. But the rules are not easy to read in terms of the wording, and there's a reason why I'm a golf coach, because reading is definitely not my forte. That being said, it does surprise me that it's a lot less unknown, and I didn't even know this, that, well, I did when I initially did my PGN, I did all the rules and everything else. However, you kind of forget that for amateur golf, non-conforming wedges, so the one in my bag that I have here at the moment, because it was made before 2010 and it was conforming to all the rules, because obviously wedge rules have been out for ages. It was conforming to prior to the 2010 rules, but obviously not now because of the grooves, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And does it actually make any difference to me and you? But you can still use those wedges up until 2024 in amateur competitions. They're just illegal. And I use illegal because, well, as soon as you put illegal in any kind of thumbnail or title on YouTube, it seems to get a lot more views. But it's illegal and non-conforming to professional golf or world ranking amateur golf, USGA, PGA, you name it. Now, I do want to do a precursor to this video, because I don't want you to go and play in your club championships with non-conforming wedges, even though as the rules read from 10 years ago you should be able to. I don't want you to go and do it and then for whatever reason you have that one golfer that goes, what's that in your bag? So please do check with your local pro. Is there a committee that's made a rule against non-conforming wedges? Has your golf club come up with rules that says you can't, even though I don't think that's, it's very grey. And it almost feels like it's a taboo. You should, even though you should be allowed, it says on paper, you should be able to use this wedge up until 2024. And there's even a review this year to see if that's going to be extended for amateurs. But it almost seems like a taboo, I should say, to put it in your bag, like you're almost cheating. And let's be honest, you don't want to be caught in the game as a cheater. We've all heard stories about infamous cheaters at golf clubs, and word spreads quickly around the golf community. Therefore, you definitely don't want to be caught to be one of those people. Now, does it actually make any difference? So this is for you guys that maybe have only been playing a couple of years or shorter and don't know what a non-conforming wedge is or what it did anything different from the ones that have obviously come out over the last couple of years. This over here is known as the fairway. It took me a good few years to find it myself, and ball number one would not be affected by a non-conforming / illegal wedge. I'd like to think actually over the last 10 years of wedge technology, you'd get more spin from your 150-pound Jaws, Vokey, whatever wedge off here. Ball number two, which is over here in the thick stuff. This is where we're a lot more comfortable, and this is where majority of us are finding our round of golf being situated. Ball number two, you can see, is actually very much buried into the long grass. Oh, hang on, wait a minute. And it's really wet, soaking. This is where the non-conforming wedge comes into its element. Because the grooves are wider, deeper, the grass, the water gets filtered away from the ball more, therefore gives you more spin. And 30 to 50% more spin gives a massive advantage to the top 300 players in the world. Okay, top 1,000 players in the world. Massive advantage. But does it make a difference for the likes of you and me? Nah. Don't get me wrong, 30 to 50% out of that is always going to be somewhat of an advantage, but the reason this rule came into place was to stop the big hitters, and I'm talking the big hitters on tour, the ones that could hit it 30 yards past everyone else, but then sprayed it a bit. So they had 100 yards out of the thick stuff, and they got to stop it on a dime, on a green that's 14 on the stim, USGA spec, where the others were hitting it off this, so hitting a good 12, 13 fairways during a round, but just weren't seeing the advantage. Very ironic if we looked who just won the US Open over the weekend when it comes to driver length not necessarily being a big advantage in this game. This, however, for me, you, Dave, on a local men's Stableford at your club, isn't going to help his 60-yard lob shot, mainly because he just thinned it out the back. This is where it gets interesting though, because I then did some research on what are these selling for, and it's difficult to obviously pin these down because they are very old, and I imagine a lot of people, just like myself, just deemed them as worthless because you can't use them in any kind of form of golf. So I did my research and I had a look, and these are actually selling for quite a bit of money. There's a few people out there that are thinking, well, I can still use these for 3-4 years, and we're talking about a wedge that's 10 years old now, and I saw one selling for £70. I've sold a Callaway Jaws wedge, pretty much mint condition this year, for £75, including postage. And we've got this non-conforming, prior manufactured 2010 Vokey wedge that was selling for the same amount of money. So there must be some people out there that know what this wedge can do. Now, in terms of the wedge grooves themselves, just like a lot of people, and this is how ignorant I am as a person, I just play golf. I thought the U groove was banned, and it's not. It's not at all. The reason that you don't see the U groove as much is, number one, because you can't have a sharp edge anymore. So you can have a U groove, but you still got to have some kind of curvature to that groove shape. That's going to lose some friction between the club and the ball. Number two, the best combination, and when the rules came into place, it was all about depth, width and spacing between all of the wedge grooves, was the V shape. Hence why you see a lot more manufacturers having wider grooves with a V shape rather than wasting it on a U shape. You could still have a U shape made in 2020, but then it's probably not going to give you as much spin as the more traditional or the more R&D specified V shape, hence why you don't see it anymore. So I guess the big question is, do I recommend you go and buy one for your bag, or a set of 3 for that matter? Because let's be honest, they're going to perform better than, as long as the grooves are sharp enough and it's obviously not scratch dented, whatever, they're going to perform better overall than a brand new wedge because of that added spin controllability out of the rough. And I would have said that if they were £20 each. After doing my research and obviously trying to get hold of one of these wedges is going to be difficult. Don't get me wrong, you're going to be able to find one for 20 quid. It's a case of where, how long, and is it actually worth it? Because for a beginner golfer, are you really going to see the difference? Or do you just buy a normal bog standard set of Ben Ross wedges and practice? Because that's going to make more of a difference. Whereas the better player could go and buy one of these wedges, spend £70 on a great condition, will see the added benefit out of the rough. But then again, because you've practiced and honed your skill, talent, whatever it might be, again, is that really necessary? We live in a country where it's raining a good half of the year. Therefore, we don't need any more spin. If anything, we need a bit more run, and we need the greens to be a bit more quicker. I think it's a very niche advantage for the top players in the world that play on perfect greens with very deep rough and have the talent and skill to see the advantages that these wedges can bring to your golf game. I just think it's very interesting. As far as I'm aware, no one really knows that you can still use them. But I had to put these non-conforming grooves to the test. How good are they out of wet rough? I hit obviously quite a few chip shots just out of the rough, off the fairway, and it felt like just a normal wedge. Potentially with a bit of placebo effect, I actually thought I was getting more spin, a bit more nip from these wedges than normal. But then I sprayed and doused both of these balls in the rough, heavy rough, with water and zero advantage. I might as well not have had any grooves on the face whatsoever, and I think this is kind of the point I'm trying to make, and the reason that we've been given another 14 years with this kind of groove combination. It does make a difference, but only for the elite performers, not for me and you. And whether you want to go and buy one of these, because you can get a bit more of advantage, and when I say a bit, you will get some kind of advantage, but is that going to translate to you shooting better scores? No. Not going in the rough in the first place is probably going to translate into better scores over the course of a year. It's exciting to know that you can get an old wedge with better grooves than you can spending £150. That's something I can stand behind. That's one of the reasons that I make these kind of videos, and the channel is based around this kind of knowledge, because just as much as rules in golf are there to hinder you and make the game fair, there's always advantages of knowing the rules very clearly. And if you can use these wedges to your advantage, then it does make sense to save a bit of money and give yourself a better wedge than your opponents. How much that's actually going to help your golf game as a 12, 16, 18, 28 handicapper, negligible. So guys, there we have it. Leave me your thoughts down below. Leave this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe. Obviously 50k, we are going to be doing that Miura giveaway. I've got some exciting ideas in terms of refurbing clubs going forward. Catch you guys later.